I don't even have eyelashes on, and my eyelashes is tripping. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you. I love and appreciate you. If you are new here, I hope you consider joining the fam. So we're picking up from the end of my last video and we're keeping the conversation going. I just wanted to pop in here real quick to tell you thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing with others. And I hope you enjoy. So that leads me into talking about the makeup artistry. I didn't feel worthy of the title of professional makeup artist because I didn't think that that's what I was. I was self-taught. I attended YouTube University. I started watching Beatface Honey, and that was the first woman of color that I saw doing makeup, and that she was a makeup artist. There's a lot of influencers that do makeup, they do their own, it's beautiful, but they don't necessarily do it professionally on clients. Tatiana was the first person that I saw that gave tips on how to build your kit, on products to use, on application tips, everything. And I just loved her personality. So I just binge watched all of her videos up to date, and then I subscribed and kept watching as she progressed in her career. So to see the amazing journey that she's shared with her YouTube community is awesome. I thought that I had to be like technically trained. I didn't attend school for it. I didn't work at a makeup counter or anything like that. I struggled. I lacked confidence. I felt like I needed those things to validate my status as a makeup artist. And I didn't learn until more recently that, like, girl, you good. I was very critical of my work. So I charged what I thought I should be charging as a new makeup artist with no technical training or experience. Living in LA, it was always assumed that I worked in television and film, or that I worked with celebrities. And so not having those experiences made me feel less than. And then on top of that, natural makeup is in now, but in soft glam, like it's a whole thing now. But clean girl makeup was not a thing back in the day, okay? I mean, we talking about 2016 where it was like full on Kim Kardashian contouring with the banana powder. Oh my gosh, the eyebrows were like the really light concealer underneath, and it was trendy to keep that concealer light underneath there and to have these like really dark, stark eyebrows. Oh, wait. And for the first couple of years, I didn't think I had what I needed. I did everything. I designed my own business cards. One of my friends paid for the first set of them for me. Another friend gave me a chair. My family, like, legit supported me and helped me. My friends helped me build the business. So I have always had that sense of community, and so it was important for me to cultivate that now. It was more or less like a hobby to me. I didn't think of it as business until later. And so I started to see how like word of mouth and referrals worked. A lot of the clients that I had in California were referrals. So I didn't really have this hustle mentality. And I always knew if makeup artistry didn't work out, I still had other things I could fall back on. I still had my job at LA County. I still had my writing career. And so I've never had to be hungry, if that makes sense. When I decided to relocate, I didn't give anyone much of a notice. It was during the pandemic, and some things were still shut down. I went out to Texas, or came to here to Texas to visit with my sister, and I was working remotely. And I remember it was like crazy. Like tickets was like $40 to fly out to Dallas. And I was like, okay. So I brought me and my daughter was going to school remotely. So we just literally brought our laptops and we came out. I applied for a couple of jobs. in Texas, but I didn't expect to hear back so soon. I got a call from the court here. It was another county job. And they were like, "You want to come in for an interview?" And I was like, okay. And so then once I said okay, I realized when I got the phone, like I didn't even bring no interview clothes. Like I was completely unprepared. So I literally had to go to the store to buy like a shirt and I think some pants. My sister gave me a blouse and some shoes. Like I didn't have nothing to interview. So I did, and the interview went well. They told me that they will let me know. And they called me later that afternoon and offered me the position, and I accepted. So I moved within a month. I went back to California, packed my stuff up, and I came back to Texas. My husband followed right after I got here in the summer of 2020 that I was pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, because if I would have known I was pregnant, I would not have gone to Texas. Like I would have stayed where I was comfortable. I've never lived outside of California before moving to Texas. It was a lot. So I just put makeup artistry on hold. I worked for the county here for 7 months. And 3 days after I gave birth to my second daughter, they called me and told me that they had to let me go. So, long story short, I would have had to be employed for 12 months or more in order for me to qualify for FMLA. So I didn't qualify. So they told me that they had to let me go, but that I had the option to reapply when I was ready to return to the workforce, and that they would be happy to consider my application or interview me again. Now I am in Texas, unemployed, new baby, new state, new everything. I only knew my sister, I only knew my little brother, and my older brother. My older brother lived near Austin, and he was in the military, so he was always moving around. So I was like, okay, what are you gonna do? So I took that opportunity, like that extra time, to just kind of get serious about my business. And I did. I redid my website. I got new business cards. I invested the money. That was, during a time where unemployment, everybody was getting that extra money with the pandemic programs. And so the extra money that I had, I invested it. And I decided, like, let me start carrying premium products. Let me start practicing my skills. I called my brother's girlfriend over. I'm like, let me practice on your face. I went to my sister's house. Let me practice. My niece was coming up on her senior year, so I practiced on her for proms, for graduations. I started to connect with the community. I put myself out there on social media and like Nextdoor app, different community forums and things like that. That I'm here, I'm in the area, and I got a little bit of traction. Started to gain some clientele, which was nice. I was able to build my portfolio. Towards the end of 2021, I ended up applying for a remote position. I was working a call center position with Verizon. I had an 8-month-old at the time. I was like, all right, I can do this. I can still build a clientele and work full time so that I can bring in an income. I had dreams of doing entrepreneurship full time. I just was afraid. I was like, okay, how does this work? What does this look like? And then I'm in a new place, so trying to build a clientele was challenging, and it's competitive here. And I was a little overwhelmed. I was afraid. I was not confident when I first started trying to do makeup here. So I was like, hone in on what you do, on who you are, what your brand represents, and let's get serious about that. I started to take actionable steps of registering my business, of getting an EIN, of getting a business bank account, of marketing myself as a makeup artist, not leading with, I'm a clerk, but I do makeup on the side. Because when you don't take it serious, then, or people feel like you don't take it serious, then they're not gonna take you serious either. I knew the clientele that I wanted. I knew the types of occasions I wanted to work and the types of opportunities that I desired. And I got serious about praying about those things and about going after those things. In 2023, Verizon announced that they were going to be reducing their workforce by 50%. their call center representatives. And I was in that 50% that was going to be let go. So they told us in May that they were going to start the first round of layoffs in August. I had a feeling that I would be in that first round in August. So I started to prepare. I started to apply for other jobs because I was scared, and started to look for opportunities in makeup artistry. Things started to do really well, started to take off, even before I was fired from Verizon. So once I was officially off payroll for Verizon, then I went in full time, opened up my books. So that meant like each day of the week, like I created like business hours. I created a studio in my home so that I could service clients out of my home. And I just like redid everything: social media, website, cards, signage. Like I was diving into like marketing and promotions and everything so that I could really just focus on J Paints. And I was like, okay, here we are. And so next thing I knew, a year had gone by. So I took that as a clear sign that God was with me, that He was, gonna bless this entrepreneurial journey. Imagine my surprise to where it's a year later and I'm like eating pork and beans and rice. I was like, God, what? This is backwards. I found myself in debt. I found myself in a position where I was putting more money, way more money into the business than I was actually making. And then any money that I was making was being allocated towards personal expenses because I didn't have a personal income. I had no job. And this is the first time that I have been in this circumstance, and it has been the most challenging season that I've financially that I've ever experienced. I got to the point where it was like day to day. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get what I need for this day. God reminded me and took me to scripture in Exodus where the Israelites were in the desert and God provided for them. And when He provided, this is Exodus chapter 16. If you want to go back and read it, I strongly suggest that you go back and you read it for yourself. But just a quick summary: they were out there, they was complaining. They was like, okay, we should have stayed in Egypt because at least in Egypt we had food. Out here, like Moses didn't let us out here. And my dog's name is Moses too. He's sitting here sleep. I'm hoping that he stays quiet for the duration of the video. And that was a whole nother thing. That's a word too, because I was pregnant when we got him and I named him Moses, and that's crazy. But it's literally been that way. Like, I feel like my moving to Texas has been an exodus. Like, baby. And God has shown Himself and proven Himself to be a provider, to be a protector, to be Lord and God of my life. I've gotten so close to Him. It's crazy. It's crazy. Specifically speaking about like financial provision, I worried about that because I had always had the stability of a job. So I knew if I wasn't clocked in, then I was going to be getting a check. And then it got to the point where I had enough tenure, I didn't have to clock in. I knew that I had PTO saved up. I knew that as long as I was employed, I was going to be getting a check every 2 weeks. This was my first time having to trust God financially. I was put in a position where I had to trust Him each day. And so when the Holy Spirit began to minister to me through the scriptures, through Exodus 16, the Israelites were grumbling, and the Bible uses the term grumbling, and grumbling could also mean complaining, of course. And they were saying, we were doing better in Egypt, where we actually had food. We were in captivity, we were slaves, but at least we were able to eat. And we've gotten drug out here to the desert to just die and to starve. And they started to have a desire to turn back. And I had been presented with that. And it was like, do I go back? Do I go back to California? Do I go back to my old lifestyle? I even considered applying to LA County. I considered applying for jobs and returning to a toxic workplace if I had to, because I was desperate. I've had these panic attacks and been dealing with this extreme anxiety and stress and this weight of feeling like I want to do what I was called to do. I want to do what God called me to do. I want to do, I want to be a creative. I want to be, I have a desire to be an entrepreneur and to be successful and prosperous in it. I want to do ministry to an extent. There's a part of me that's running like, no thanks, no thanks. I don't want to do ministry. But learning more about what it actually is, I think I've been doing it longer than I even realized. And the more that God teaches me, I'm like, wow, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I find it to be an honor and a privilege to be able to serve the Lord in this way. But definitely dealt with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, depression, imposter syndrome. Like, even when the business started doing really, really well, I was like, okay, like, just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, okay, things are gonna go bad and go terrible, and then everything's just gonna be bad. And it hasn't been that way. There's been some things that I've been afraid of happening that happened, and once it happened, I just was like, okay, and God kept me through it. Like Isaiah 43:2 says, I'll be with you even through deep waters. And God will allow me to not drown. And that is his word and his promise. Like, he'll be with me. Like, he's not saying I'm gonna take away all of the bad things or I'm gonna take away all of the hard things, but I'm gonna be with you in it. And that's his word and his promise. And his word never returns into him void. As I continue to read and study about how the Israelites perceived manna from heaven, it blessed me. And I want to talk about how God provided for them. First, he told them, I heard your grumbling, and I'm still going to bless you. And I'm going to bless you with manna from heaven. And he said bread, that he's going to provide bread from heaven. And the people decided to call it manna based on, what it looked like. What I loved about it was that when God provided, like he said he would, when the Israelites woke up, the Bible says that they saw the bread covering the ground and that it was like white, and they couldn't make out its texture, or it's like they couldn't make out its texture, and it didn't look like food that they would eat. It didn't look like bread like they normally knew it. And I love that. And it's so profound because God said that he would make a way for them in the wilderness. And then when he provided it, it didn't look like something that he had done before, right? It didn't look like the bread and the meals that they have prepared. But he said, I'll make sure that you have meat in the evening, and I'll make sure in the morning that you'll have bread. They called it manna. They went out and they gathered it, and they were like, okay. And they realized when they ate it that it was good. And then in the evening, God sent quail to the camp, and they were able to eat meat, just like he said. And then God gave instructions about this provision. He said, only go out and gather what you need for that day. Don't take no leftovers. Consume what you need for that day. Some of them were obedient, some of them were not. And sure enough, those that decided to take a little doggy bag, and they had maggots in it, and it was rotten and stinking up everything. Everybody else had to suffer because y'all was disobedient. That's a word in itself. Okay, come on, somebody. I was so blessed by that because it had come to that. I had come to a season where I needed daily bread. I needed daily provision from the Lord. And the Lord reminded me of this story that I had read many times before, but I didn't look at it the same way. And so I needed it in that particular moment, and God made sure to provide it for me. And he made sure to confirm, Jade, I'm going to take care of you. The Lord says that he will take care of the birds. He'll take care of the lilies of the field. He'll take care of the grass. He makes sure that the trees have what they need, and the plants and the animals and the insects. How much more valuable is his child? How much more valuable? How much more does he love you that he'll make sure to provide everything that you need? And so I started to change my prayer. And when I wake up and I pray over that day, and I say, God, thank you for providing what I need today. And when my mind gets to moving and I get to having these panic attacks and this anxiety tries to just overwhelm me, then I have to remember that truth. And I encourage you to remember that. One, he commands us not to worry about tomorrow. In Matthew 6:34, he says, don't worry about tomorrow. It has enough to worry about on its own. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I got tomorrow. You go on and do what you need to do today. Be obedient today. Find how you can serve the Lord today. Spend time in his presence today. Pray today. And then he will provide what you need today. Don't worry about what gotta go on after in the next 24 hours. He's gonna provide today. Whatever you need, he's gonna provide it, because that's what he does. He's a good father. I'm extremely grateful. I've seen God's provision. I see it daily, and how he works things out daily. There's been times recently where I've had to say, God, please provide my family with dinner tonight. And I ask God to remove all the pride of me feeling like, girl, you are running a business in 2 states and you don't got dinner, you're doing bad. And the enemy will love to tell you that and make you believe that God has forsaken you, that he won't come through, and that your life is off track, and that you're off track, and that you're disconnected from him, and that he doesn't care about you, and he don't love you like he say he do, because he wouldn't have you going through this. That's a lie. That's all the enemy do, is lie. Remember, he loves you. He cares about you and everything that pertains to you. I've shared this like on my social media, that I pray about everything, even setting powder, lashes, brow pencils, everything. I don't care if it sounds crazy, because I watch God do things that I never thought possible. And it's, I believe, because of obedience and prayer. Talk to God. He want to hear from you. And sometimes he strips away things and he removes all distractions, even things that we think we need, so that he can get your attention, so that he can spend time with you. He desires relationship with us. So just take a moment, breathe. If you got to cry a little bit, Jonathan McReynolds got a song called Overrated. And in the bridge of the song, he says, I may have to cry a little bit. I may have to pray through the thick of it. I may have to just lay here a little while longer. But when I'm weak, he's strong. And I love that song and those words, because in my weakness, God has been my strength, always. And he said in his word that he will never leave you and he'll never forsake you. Take him at his word, because he is not a man that he should lie. He meant that thing. Okay? So I thank you for watching. I hope that you're encouraged. Get up, go about your day. Don't worry about the next 24 hours. God will provide. I love you. I'll see you in my next video.